Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, March 2nd, 2025. Coming to you live from Florida Media in Rockville Center. Have an absolutely explosive trade deadline show coming up for you tonight. That's right, the trade deadline is only days away. Coming up on Friday, we're going to talk about what may or may not happen in the land of the New York Islanders. Also, David Dwork from The Hockey News will be joining us. My name is Sean Cuthbert. With me, the vast majority of the time, is Mr. Stefen Rosner. Stefen, how are you?
I'm just ready for an explosive show. There's a lot to talk about. We don't know. No one knows what's going to happen.
No
the
idea.
NHL doesn't know. Does Lou know? I guess that's part of what we're going to talk about today.
We're going to speculate. But before we do, we're going to tell you all about our absolutely wonderful sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd and unplug your game at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. We're also proud to be sponsored by Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch every Islanders game with great food and drinks at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center all season long. We're also proud to be sponsored by Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That is RAISERANDKENNIFF.com for a free consultation. And last, but certainly not least, we are proud to be sponsored by Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company and creator of the Diamond Air Blade. Get 10% off at tovihockey.com with promo code HNINY10. And folks, as always, if you're hanging out with us live in the chat, you want to ask us some questions during Questions Brewing, type in Questions Brewing, followed by your question, and we will answer said question at that point in time. So with all of that out of the way, it is time for Experience Points, presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe, where we make our points about the Islanders' experience in the previous week. So, Stefen, a lot of games last week.
A lot more than usual.
A lot of things happened.
We had the break, and then they said, we're just going to give you as many games as possible.
Right, squeeze them right in there. So 4 games on the previous docket. Sunday, lost to Dallas at UBS Arena. Robertson gets the hat trick, and the Islanders get hosed by a 5-minute major call against Casey Cizikas. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I didn't think it was the correct call. I didn't love the ref going and asking Bishop where he got hit and then making the call. And for a guy like Cizikas, we know his game. He's going to be physical. He's going to get on the forecheck. He's not a dirty player. The size disparity there was enormous.
Right. I
get calling it a major because if you didn't see it, that's the right call, so you can review it. But you could also review it and call nothing.
Right.
And I've watched the replay so many times. So you want to keep seeing the replays. Say, okay, maybe you could see something. You never saw anything. I never saw a point of contact being the head. I never saw the initial contact being the head. And when Cal Clutterbuck gets on and says the same thing, I was looking to see if I could see something, and I saw nothing. And he goes, it was very funny. He goes, if that was me and I laid that hit and I got ejected, I would not be very happy.
Right, of course.
And again, blaming refs on losses to me is something you don't do.
Sure.
However, not to blame the loss because you still have to kill off the penalty. You have a chance to score.
Yeah.
The momentum completely got flipped.
Changed the game.
1,000% impact of the game. It was also the last game where we saw Scott Mayfield play. He was a -3 in that game, I believe.
Not great.
He's on the ice for 2 of the power play goals against, but Jason Robertson had himself a night.
He sure did.
And it was unfortunate for the Islanders because you thought if that doesn't get called, they had the momentum, they probably win that game.
Like if you compare that to the reviewed Siplikov hit, right? Go back to that whole call. He ends up getting the suspension. Now, I remember in the moment saying, oh, man, I don't like this call.
Yeah.
Saw the replay, said, he got his head. I get it, Here, look at the replay, and it's like, what are these guys even calling? And unfortunately, like you said, it has a huge impact on the game. They should have at least done a better job killing penalties. Yes. But the truth of the matter is they never should have been put in that place in the first place. They are, and they end up only losing by a goal. So to the Islanders' credit, they play a tough team in Dallas pretty well. Not enough, lose the game in regulation, and unfortunately, an unfortunate way to come back from the Four Nations break. So then we move on to Tuesday against the New York Rangers.
That was a doozy.
Now, here's another game, and I've kind of been saying this, you have as well, how the Islanders' effort is there the majority of the nights, and I feel like this is another case of that. You look at the shot disparity. Now, maybe the Islanders didn't have too many dangerous shots in that game, but I know a lot of people pointed to Ilya Sorokin after that game and said this is a night he should have had. He should have performed better in. And I would even come to his defense a bit, only because, and I tweeted about this, of course, as it was going on as well, 4 of the 5 goals against were deflections. Yep. Only 1 was actually a straight shot on net that you had JT Miller in front of the net, right? And the rest of them is either bouncing off Sezikis' arm, Rempe gets a deflection. So if you want to blame Sorokin for that, okay, have at it. It's your right. But at the same time, in that fast-paced environment, you're expecting a shot to go in one spot, and at the last second, it ends up in another spot. Kind of hard for any goaltender to make that save. Now, could he perform better overall? Sure, like I said, you can make that argument. But at the same time, it was just a strange game of luck for me, as far as just the Rangers are like, hey, let's throw some pucks at the net, right? And they were throwing it from everywhere, from the point.
Right, yep.
And it just happened to go off the right, shin pad or the right part of, the right stick, whatever it was, goes in the net. At the end of the day, the Islanders have to score more than 1 goal. But I think that game was closer than the score showed.
I think so, and I think they got Rempe'd. Because when Rempe is when Rempe is playing a very basic game where he goes in front of the goalie, doesn't do anything stupid, he's very effective because I get Scott Prunovich not being able to move him out of the way. Size difference there. Ryan Pulak couldn't move him. And they were both on the ice, I think, they were -4s, I think, in that game. And going back to Sorokin, is it his fault? No, his defense did not help him at all, and there were bad bounces.
That too.
I thought there were a lot of times where, after the first goal goes in, where Sorokin screened, if I was him, and again, not a goalie in the NHL, not a goalie coach, you need to be at the top of your crease to draw contact. Because what if you can't see it? The best thing to do is be aggressive because it might just hit you. I didn't think Sorokin did a strong enough job fighting through screens, but also if he's at the top of the crease and has to move to his left, move to his right, and he hits Rempe, we see how many goal interference calls don't go the way anyone's planned. That's one thing that I don't think Sorokin does enough is draw contact. Now, I'm not saying goalies should go out of their way to every time they can't see the puck.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be down with that.
But there are times where if you can't see the puck and you're fighting through and there's a body in front, go to your crease is your crease. Take advantage of it. If Rempe's at the top of the crease and you want to go there, go there. Because if he makes contact with you, it's not a goal. So I think for Sorokin, he got a little caught letting his house, really. He gave some real estate to Rempe. And I think that affected him the entire game. He said he had to go back to his goaltending coach and figure out what went wrong because he said he was trying to fight through the screens, just couldn't see him. And you say the deflections, and I understand that too. But if you're out really aggressive and they deflect the puck, less room for it to beat you than if you're sitting back trying to look through. So I think for Sorokin, and we saw it the next game, which we'll get to, ultra aggressive and it paid dividends. And I think the other thing for the Islanders, Igor's a great goalie. When he's locked in, he's one of the best in the league. They let him see everything.
Right.
They're like what the Rangers did to the Islanders with Rempe in front and bodies was great for them. The Islanders didn't do that at all, and it allowed Shesterkin to get into a groove, and once that happens, he's very hard to beat.
Right, for sure. And was it after that game that Patrick Waugh started giving Sorokin some lessons of practice?
Yep.
It was, right?
It was so that was Tuesday, practice on Wednesday. Yeah, it was Wednesday. Wednesday morning, Sorokin was out there with Waugh.
So I wonder how much of an effect that had in the following game.
I think tremendous because, well, I don't think it was about being aggressive. I think his goalie coach told him, and I think he watches back and he sees that. But Waugh told us after that game, his message to Sorokin was, dude, just trust your instincts.
Yeah.
I think Sorokin was overthinking. He got a little flustered with what am I supposed to do? And then Waugh said, listen, just play your game. Just don't think about what's going on in front of you. Just trust your instincts. And then we go to the Boston game. And all he did was trust his instincts, making those. Because the other thing Waugh said is, these point-blank shots in the slot, you have no time to think. You just have to react. So just Sorokin, just go do that and just react. And we saw it against Boston.
Yeah, for sure. Sorokin shines. The penalty kill shines. Yeah. Pasternak extends his point streak late in the game, makes it 2-1, right? But the Islanders hang on. They win that game. And, for me, I said this too. Like, the Islanders are going to win this game, right? They lose those 2 in a row, and they weren't going to make it easy for anybody heading into the deadline here, right? Where, if you end up, 7 to 10 points out, whatever it is, like, okay, you got to sell, right? You got to make moves. Right. But, of course, they beat Boston. Yesterday comes, and you fold the season if you don't beat Nashville in your own building with the way that team's been playing, right? So they have a goal fest yesterday, 7-4, another win. That's 2 in a row, and that puts the Islanders right back in the mix here. Afternoon game. It was kind of like the Saturday game versus the afternoon game for the Islanders. Saturday prevailed, I guess, because usually the afternoon is not good for the Isles. Sorokin obviously gets the goal. That was fun. The dominant first period with the 3 goals there, but a big win. And now, we look ahead to this week and wonder what the hell's going to happen.
You need to beat Nashville. I mean, every team needs to beat Nashville.
Right.
If you're trying to make the playoffs, you lose day game. They came out and scored. They just played their game early, and that's one thing that's been missing in these day games. Is like they're just not ready to play.
Right.
They scored the 3 quick goals, and all the players talked about how great it was to just play with a lead. And I went into the Nashville room afterwards, and they said we didn't show up on time. And you spot a team 3 goals, you're not winning the hockey game. But Sorokin getting the goal, really cool. Did it before Igor. That quote, Ethan Sears, great quote there to get that. It was a great day, and they also got to go home and relax. But we've always talked about it. I think we could just click record and rerun the tape every time. You win that game, but then you can't go and now lose the next one. Like, especially when you're trying to beat a team and jump over a team like the Rangers who are playing right now. I know Jake the Snake will give us an update at some point, but you got to build off that because that was probably your best first period of the season. And going into MSG, whether the Rangers win tonight or not, that's a huge revenge game for you guys for the Islanders to go into their building, beat them. Because I do think, and people are going to go nuts about this, I think if the Islanders win one of these next 2 games, they're buying. And I'll just, I really do.
Sneak preview for later in the show.
I don't know. Because they can, in theory, be 1 point back or 2 points back. And it's going to be really tough for me to sell.
You talk about the refs making bad calls. You look at the Stadium Series game last night. The refs did the Islanders a favor by not calling that high stick late in the game against Columbus because that game ends up ending in regulation. The worst result for the Islanders, if you're hoping to make the playoffs, is you want one team to win, no 3-point game. The Islanders get that, which keeps them 5 points out of a playoff spot. And whatever meager hopes you may consider it to be, but they do still have hopes in the playoffs. But Stefen, before we break, give me some experience points.
Yeah, I'm going to give Romanov 2,800. I think he had a great week, 3-game point streak, 2 goals, 1 assist, 6 shots on goal. He's playing over 22 minutes a game, 8 hits. He's emerging as a legitimate number 1 defenseman because even if he doesn't bring the hits on one night, he's going to bring the blocks. If he doesn't bring the blocks, he's going to bring the offense. He scored that goal in Boston out of the penalty box. He's just throwing pucks through, and we got to speak with Tony DeAngelo after practice because since Tony has come aboard, we've seen a different Romanov. He's playing to everything that you thought he could be, and we asked Romanov about what he's seen from Romanov. This is what he had to say.
I didn't know too much about his game before I got here, but I've been super impressed with playing with him. He's calm with the puck, he can break it out, defends really well. He's good in the O-zone. I've just been super impressed with him. He's, not that I didn't think he was good. I thought he was a good player, but he's way better than I thought as you get to play with him and watch him as the game goes on. But he's been a big help for me, and hopefully he feels the same way. He gets his shots through. He's able to find a way to get them through. Obviously, they're going in for him right now, which is good. But he just creates lanes. He's not afraid to move. He can make a play, too. He's got heavy shots. So those wristers getting in there is what we're trying to do, get guys in front of the net, tips, rebounds, whatever it is. So the more he gets them through, the more chances we're going to create.
So with Romanov, and if he's going to bring the offense now, NHL forward, everyone's got to watch out because he does, like D'Angelo said, he gets them through. And that's something like everyone knocks Sebastian Aho about just his game in general. But when Sebastian Aho took a wrist shot, even if it was on the power play, he got it through. And these shots are so important because look at Pulak. I'm not here to knock on Pulak, but really hard shot. But he doesn't get it on net.
Gets it just about everywhere else.
Yeah, right. And you have a guy like Romanov, who it's a hard shot, but it's always on net. And it just allows for so much more, allows for chaos. I mean, maybe even think putting Romanov on the power play at this point with how much they get the shots through.
You never know.
But Romanov's been at the bright spots of the team this year. You have Holmstrom, and I think Romanov is, it's 1-2 there. And it's great. Both sides of the puck, getting 2 guys that are emerging.
2 young guys.
Exactly. Yep. Part of your core. But who is your experience?
I'm going to give 31,845 to Ilya Sorokin for scoring the first NHL goal of his career and also ribbing Igor in the process.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
So that will do it for Experience Points presented by Main Street Board Game Cafe. Unplug your game and raise your experience at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play, food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, Lorcana, and organized play communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd. Unplug your game. And now we will go to break. And when we come back, we're going on the line.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things us at TV, Scheme and One. All episodes are also of YouTube and all your favorite podcasts. And for all your butterflies, you can lock in on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York. It's night of the week for any.
Attention all artists, storytellers, and creators of all kinds. It's time to make your content stand out above the rest. And Floored Media is the place to make your visions become a reality. Maybe you want to elevate your podcast and add some video, or turn that novel you wrote into an audiobook. Or maybe you just need the right space to produce your daily vlog. Whether you're a seasoned veteran or just starting out, Floored Media has the professional facilities, exceptional staff, and intimate atmosphere to breathe life into your creative passions at every step of the process.
Did you have a nice break? Well, it's time to get back on the couch for more Islanders therapy on Hockey Night in New York.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching Hockey Night in New York, and it's time for On the Line, presented by Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company. And joining us right now from the Hockey News is Mr. David Dwork. David, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
Yes, absolutely. Looking forward to chatting here. So, a big trade in Panthers country. Let's start right off the bat with that. Seth Jones, Spencer Knight, big deal here, other parts included. I wanted to start just by asking you, what was the mindset for the Panthers on this deal, Mr. Zito over there? What's the mentality? Obviously, you lose a very promising young goaltender in Knight for the future, but they bring in a veteran defenseman in Seth Jones. What's the mentality there?
I think it was maybe one of the worst kept secrets for a while now that the Panthers had been coveting a right shot defenseman. So to see Bill Zito, who kind of has had a little bit of propensity to make big deals during his, I don't know if you want to call it brief now, 5 years with the Panthers, so this didn't come as a surprise at all. The Panthers are, very much in win now mode. So giving up future assets isn't that big of a deal when you can bring in guys, like look at Seth Jones. He's going to completely upgrade their back line, add an offensive element that's been missing since they lost guys like Montour and Ekman Larson in the offseason. And then doing all that without impacting your starting lineup whatsoever. The Panthers still get to roll the same 19 guys, with Jones entering that. But only losing a backup goaltender. Now, granted, as you mentioned, Spencer Knight was considered the goalie of the future, has a very bright future ahead of him, and this season has been on a very upward trajectory, just in terms of how he's played and how he's kind of gained momentum and come into his own a bit. So in that regard, yeah, the Panthers are losing something, but clearly the value that they're finding in bringing in a guy like Jones and adding to the current roster of team that's building for another Stanley Cup right now, that was much more valuable to them than it was to keep Knight around for the future.
Hey, David, thanks so much for joining us. Do you think this move has any relation to maybe Ekblad not being back with this team going forward after this year?
I don't know, only because I know how crucial Ekblad has been to the Panthers' success and the way that they play hockey in terms of the 200-foot game that really the systems that Paul Maurice has brought in and the team has perfected over the last 2.5 years. Ekblad wants to be here, so I would imagine that, maybe when negotiations start happening, he might be willing to offer them a little bit more of a hometown discount to stick around, as we've seen with a lot of the other guys too. Like, don't get me wrong, Carter Verhage took less money, Sam Reinhart took less money, Gus Forsling took less money. A lot of guys would have made a lot more on the open market had they not taken the deals they did in Florida. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Aaron Ekblad kind of fall in line with those guys and continue to build on what they have here. But the thing about Aaron Ekblad is he's removed a lot of the offense from his game in order to amplify his defense. It's something that if he did hit the open market and went to another team, I think his offensive numbers would skyrocket should he be put in a situation like that. But his value to the Panthers is of the way that he's been playing in terms of maybe sacrificing a little bit of the offense, not playing as much on the power play. So his value to the team, I think, is very high. And honestly, it'd be surprising to me if him and Sam Bennett, either one of them, end up leaving.
So, David, are the Florida Panthers done here? Are they looking to build some more? Are there any other spaces on their roster they might be looking to fill? Or are they satisfied here with Jones and they're ready to rock?
I'd be surprised if Bill Zito's done. I mean, first of all, they're going to bring in another goaltender. I think that's pretty much a sure thing. From what I've been told, they are targeting a certain group. I don't want to say too much just to give away from what a source told me, but they are looking right now. That's for sure. Outside of that, look, last year they brought in Kyle Okposo and Vladimir Tarasenko at the deadline at a team that was already kind of rolling into the playoffs. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see them maybe bring in another guy, maybe who can add a little bit of scoring, play on the second power play. Obviously, another depth guy wouldn't hurt. Fourth line center has been something that's kind of been percolating a little bit. Not that Thomas Nosek hasn't done a good job, but if they can add a little offense to that end, perhaps. I think they're probably done on the blue line. Right now, they're probably going to roll 7 deep now that they brought Jones in. I don't see them sending, one of the, whether it's Nate Schmidt or Uvis Belinstis. Like, I would imagine they're all going to stick around for now. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them bolster up the forward unit a little bit. And then, as I said, goaltending, I'd be shocked if they don't bring in somebody.
So we were talking on the show before the Four Nations about Brock Nelson going and the risk of injury and how that would absolutely destroy the Islanders, whether they trade him or not. You obviously are dealing with Matthew Tkachuk, and I think he was placed on IR today. Just, you could talk about, your feelings of how long he might be out, and, was it worth it, looking back, hindsight, obviously, for him to go and play in a tournament?
I'll answer the second question first. Was it worth it? In my opinion, and in the opinions of basically everybody I've talked to about, yes, it was worth it. And I don't hear anybody on the Florida Panthers complaining about it either, and I don't hear anybody from the Ottawa Senators, Matthew's brother, complaining about Brady not playing. It was just awesome. I mean, that tournament was as short as it was, and as what do we got, like 6 games or whatever. It was so cool, and we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody's regretting anything. I think in the Panthers case, the way that it seems to be playing out, because we don't know for sure exactly what's happened yet, it looks like they're making the best of a bad situation, and that they've got that option. Something that we've seen other teams do. We've seen Tampa. We've seen Vegas succeed a lot in this situation. So, it is what it is. If Tkachuk ends up having to miss that time, which, as a result from Four Nations, I mean, it's not just the Panthers that would be in that situation. Obviously Boston with McAvoy, Vegas with Martinez. Like, these are guys that got hurt there as well. So at the end of the day, I don't know. I wouldn't trade it, though. And I'd be surprised if any of those guys would say at the end of the day they would either. Wasn't it just amazing?
Yes. It was great. It was great hockey. The only reason I asked, because we were all thinking, well, if Brock gets hurt and they can't trade him, which is different than the Tkachuk, obviously, the Islanders would be in a lot of trouble.
Sure. No, David.
Yeah, every team's in a different situation, right? So I guess the Panthers have that luxury.
David, I actually think it's great to hear that there's no regrets,
yeah, exactly.
That there's no remorse over it, because the last thing I think we want, because like you just said, it was amazing, and all of us as hockey fans, as hockey people, loved it. You don't want to see them getting gun shy with these future events, right? Whether it's the Olympics, whether it's the World Cup of hockey coming back. So I think it's great to hear, even after such an unfortunate set of situations there with Tkachuk, that they're still like, nah, we're good. Let's keep going forward with this. So I think that's great news. Just my last question on the Panthers here. How does this season's version of the Panthers that are gunning for a repeat here compare to the Stanley Cup champions of last year?
Well, they play the same style, that's for sure. They want to ham you down deep. They want to get pucks in deep. They want to bruise you and batter you and kind of make you feel like you just played a 7-game series in one night. I think this year they're a little bit deeper in the forward ranks than they were last year, to be honest. And as I said, they're looking to add to that potentially. So it's it's kind of cool to see how they've built from what they were a few years back and what they were that when Bill Zito came in to now. Obviously, they need their goaltender to stay healthy, more so in this moment than ever, really before in the last few years, just as we don't know what's behind Sergei Bobrovsky. And, no disrespect at all to Chris Streeter, but he has not, he hasn't shown at the NHL level that he can be that guy. He had an amazing run last year in the AHL with Coachella Valley, going all the way to the Calder Cup finals. But are the Panthers willing to put their goaltending insurance policy on a relative unknown in that regard? So, there are some differences, but overall, I think they're going to play the same brand. They're going to be just as intimidating, and I think now a little bit more so because they have that championship pedigree.
Yeah, they're a tough team, and also Paul Maurice. How can you not love that guy?
Aces.
So, David, for the outside perspective, we're also obviously really close following the Brock Nelson stuff, but from an outside perspective, someone that covers the sport, what do you make of what's going on with the Islanders where no one seems to know? I don't know if the Islanders know whether they're buying or selling. When you have a guy like Brock Nelson, who's probably the number one trade candidate, just what do you make of what's going on right now?
Well, it's so funky, right? Because I'm looking at the standings right now, and while the Islanders are kind of far away in like an actual length point from the second wildcard spot, they're only 5 points back. So it's, you go on a week-long winning streak and all of a sudden, you're right back in the mix. So it's a funky situation to be in. Am I surprised at all? No, Stefen. Who's in charge of the Islanders? Right. There's zero information that's ever going to come out. I'd like them to make a run just as I enjoy watching the Islanders. I love Islanders fans. I'm a big fan of Patrick Roy. So I'd like to see them make a run. I think it could make things more fun if a team from the Metro got into that mix. But no, honestly, I'm just kind of sitting here with my popcorn waiting to see how it plays out.
For sure. And Stefen here, he actually wrote a piece on how basically it's a seller's market this year at the trade deadline. So you look at names like Brock Nelson, maybe Kyle Palmieri, maybe even a guy like J.G. Pageau could be getting dangled by the Islanders if they actually happen to be sellers this time around. You think those guys can get a haul given what we've seen in the other deals going on around the league?
Yeah, well, especially now that you're getting deals happening a week ahead of time, where now maybe guys that weren't waiting around a little bit want to see how things play out. All of a sudden, you're getting a little bit hot under the collar, wanting to make that move a little bit quicker. And that plays right into the hand of a seller's market because now teams are wanting to make moves beforehand, maybe before they were a little bit ready. So a team like the Islanders potentially could be interesting. Just like your crosstown rivals, the Rangers, they're already kind of looking like they're giving off pieces as well. So that could make things a little bit more tempting. But if you're right there on the cusp of a playoff spot, especially what we've seen in the last few years, 2 years ago, the Panthers got in as a 1.8 seed and they went all the way to the final. So you never know what could happen. So I'm hopeful that it's a fun week, that the Seth Jones trade just kind of kicks things off. We get 2 or 3 blockbusters and everybody goes crazy because the fan in me, that's all I want to see.
All right, last one for me here. You talked about the Florida Panthers needing center depth. Would a guy like Casey Cizikas kind of fit in? Because Cizikas is one of the only players on the Islanders with zero trade protection. They have Kyle McLean there. Cizikas is playing wing right now, but is that kind of a guy that probably fits, the Panthers to a T?
In terms of his style of play, I would think so. I know he's a physical guy. I know he can get in. I know he'll put in the work. I think for Florida, if they're looking for somebody that can play a depth role and a bottom six guy, yeah, he would fit in. A guy like Ryan Donato out of Chicago is another one that comes to mind, just in terms that can play that role, that have a little bit of speed, a little bit of hands, but certainly the grit. But I know I just wouldn't put it past Bill Zito to try to go out there and try to bring in a top six guy right now, because if Tkachuk ends up staying on LTIR through the playoffs, that gives them a lot of cap space to work with. And why wouldn't you? They made that Chicago trade with the conditional first round pick with the Seth Jones trade for a reason, right? It's a 26, but it can become a 27 if they don't have that pick. Well, why wouldn't they have that pick? Because they might trade it in the next 6 days. So, it wouldn't put it past Zito at all.
So what Dave's saying is Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri both going to Florida.
Obviously.
Yeah,
Clearly,
exactly.
that's the conclusion to draw there. David, my last one before you get going. Whether it's in the Eastern Conference or the Western side, what team in the league is the biggest threat to the Florida Panthers repeating this season?
Oof. I mean, it's hard to go out of the East because then you're just basically giving Florida their ticket to the Stanley Cup final. But immediately, the first team that I thought of was Winnipeg. And, I know that they're the top team this year and they're an easy pick just because of how good they're playing. But when you combine a team that's playing as fluid and just the way that their offense moves and with that speed, when you combine that with a team that can defend well, and then Stefen, I know Connor Hellebuck scares the bejesus out of me if I'm going up against that team. And while he hasn't necessarily done it in the playoffs in past years, he showed during Four Nations that he can play on that big stage. And I don't know. I've been smitten with that team all season and the way that they haven't fallen off and almost kind of picked up momentum. I'm excited to see how far they can take it.
You know why Hellebuck scares me? And then before we let you go, is that he doesn't wear a neck protector. And he's always has his head up, and his neck is always. I'm always so nervous he's going to get one. But then again, he plays position so well that he's never in a situation like that.
I don't know how goalies do that. When I see them in men's league, when I see them at that level, like even Sergei Bobrovsky, like there's times where he'll wear the dangler during practice. You're acknowledging the fact that, like, I don't know. It just never bothered me to the point where I'd want to leave my neck exposed. Like, am I crazy?
No, I agree with you.
Not at all.
But David, thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it.
No, my pleasure, man. Anytime.
All right, David, great stuff. Thanks for your time, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday night.
You too. Take care. Have a good one.
All righty. That was David Dwork of the Hockey News. Great stuff from him. Stefen, please tell us more about Tovi Hockey.
Yes, Tovi Hockey, the innovative hockey technology company, is created the 100% solid carbon fiber diamond air blade, the only other NHL-approved blade technology. With superior feel and increased swing speed due to its perforated design, unparalleled control thanks to the micro-grip blade texture, greater durability courtesy of its patented aerodynamic cross-beam construction, unparalleled shooting accuracy thanks to its large sweet spot, Tovi Hockey is changing the game by making the next-gen stick of tomorrow available today. Go to ToviHockey.com to check out their great selection of sticks, gear, and apparel, and use promo code HNINY10 for 10% off your order. Tovi Hockey, stronger, faster, superior.
Stronger, faster, superior. Stefen, are the Islanders going to be stronger, faster, and superior after the trade deadline?
I don't know. Find out after the break. No, I have no idea. I mean, I guess in theory, if you're asking me that, probably. I don't know. I'm just.
Wow.
I have a really hard time saying that they're going to sell.
Okay.
When they're just not statistically dead. Like, well, look at Lou. Like, why would Lou? It's crazy because you think sell Brock, sell Kyle, get the, and we're going to talk about it, of course, but
yes,
sell all that, right? Easy peasy to do that. But then you look at next year. I'm not saying this is logical, but maybe it is. I don't know. You trade Brock and Kyle. Let's say it's 60 goals you're giving up. If the Islanders do want to compete next year and they're not flipping the assets they get for other assets that could help you next year, they're going to have a hard time scoring. Like, where do you find that? So I think for me, and this statement could change in the next 25 minutes. If they go through the deadline and don't trade both these guys, I think that likely means they are coming back because I think, or there's a chance at least that's more higher than 50%, because as much as Lou gets, from fan base, like, he's not a dumb guy. And as it happened before where he's waited up contract-wise, not trading a guy, hoping they would come back. You look at Zach Parise with the Devils. Like, he held on to him.
Yeah.
Contract didn't happen. He leaves. But that's the one time I've heard under the Lou tenure where that's really happened. So I think if those two guys, Brock and Kyle, stay past the deadline, you got to think at least conversations are going well with an extension. So that's where I'm at in this moment in time. What time is it? 32. At 45, ask me again.
Well, Islander fans that are listening or watching that may need some time to go to the bathroom to throw up. After hearing all of that, we're going to go to break right now. When we come back, it's time for What's on Tap.
Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan. Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The train rolls on right into Center Station, courtesy of the LI Double R. That's right. It's time for What's on Tap, presented by Center Station Bar and Grill. And there is quite a bit on tap, Mr. Rosner. Wouldn't you say so?
I would say so.
Okay, great. I'm glad you agree. So, starting with tomorrow, Monday, March 3rd, the Islanders go in to Madison Square Garden. You spoke on this already. This is a huge game for the New York Islanders and for anybody who wants to see Islander playoff hockey this spring. Little opportunity for revenge. And let's face it, if you're looking at the two games here before the deadline, this is probably the one to take. Sure, they're home against Winnipeg, but as we just talked about, Winnipeg is a tough team, so I think you got to put your best foot forward against the Rangers in the Garden tomorrow.
So I'm going to guess Sorokin starts.
Probably.
It will be Igor because Quick started tonight. I think 800th career start, I believe, tonight.
Wow.
Jake, what's the update on that? 2-0? 3-0? Rempe threw a hit. What's new? Got an elbowing penalty minor.
Jeez.
But yeah, this is, you look at, Rangers are a second of back-to-back. So, yes, they're at home, the Rangers, but you got to come out firing like you did against Nashville. And we say it all the time, like, just do what you did in the wins, right? Like, do what makes you successful. If the Islanders sit back and let the Rangers take it to them, what killed the Islanders, we talk about the screens, but it was the fourth line cycled. Like, the fourth line dominated the Islanders' fourth line and third line. And we're thinking, Brzezinski, how does he have 2 goals? Vakanainen being left wide open. Like, they just need to work on their coverage. And I think they also were sloppy, like getting the pucks out, things like that. So for the Islanders, you have to, if they have to win one of these 2 games to buy, and I know fans are going to be really pissed off, but the way I look at it also, too, is the closer the Islanders are to the playoffs, people could think that lose buying or selling, but that means that other teams have to pry players from the Islanders. Because Luke could say, listen, I'm not selling. So if you really want Brock or really want Kyle, sure, the market has a number 2 second-round pick for Kyle. Make it 2 because we're not selling. So I think for fans that are like, lose, which I always disagree with, but try to understand that the closer they are, the more leverage the Islanders do have, whether the other teams think it's ludicrous or not. If they want the players the Islanders have and there's a huge bidding war, Luke could say, listen, we're a point away. I'm not selling. So if you really, really want to take Nelson off my hands, or Palmieri, or Pajot, or Lee, you better pay more than the market. And then that's how you win trades. So I think it's only a positive for the Islanders to get as close as possible, whether they make the playoffs, buy or sell. That's just my mindset there.
And the Rangers have already done some selling themselves recently.
That's another point I wanted to bring up from Dwork, and you just made the good point there, is that the teams that are ahead of the Islanders, some of them might just start bailing early, which opened, like, for me, Boston is one of those teams. Like, once we talked about it on the show, I think the first show back, I said, Boston's done. Like, you lose your top defenseman, like, you're done. Yeah. So if the Rangers start, you look at the Rangers lineup tonight, I know on paper it doesn't really matter, they're winning the game. It's a brutal looking, like, the bottom 6, no offense to Calvin DeHaan, really nice guy.
Yeah, but, like, pretty funny.
We had talked to, who would we have on? Evan Royal from Colorado about how he didn't really have a huge role, wasn't really playing.
Yeah, pretty funny how that came back.
I think the Rangers are another team, like, they're going to sell. And so the more teams that drop off, should the Islanders follow suit? Probably. But even better, if the more teams that drop out, Luke could say, listen, now I really should go for it.
Dude's looking for any reason to do it. I think we know that.
Right?
I mean, so I wouldn't put anything past him. But look, you got a big game against the Rangers. The Islanders, they have fared well in the past in the Garden. They, it's gonna be a fun game to watch. But now that they've unloaded some guys,
a fun game to watch?
What's that? No.
Okay.
No. Usually those ones aren't. No. As the game goes on, it gets worse. Yeah, but. At least to start, at the 20-minute mark of the first period.
At 1958.
The anticipation will be there. Yeah. So, and now you say you have these guys that they unloaded. So, I mean, it just kind of, adds more ammunition for the Islanders to win here, right? I mean, this is a game that they should go into the Garden and win. The Rangers have struggled all season long. They're in the position they're in for a reason, right? They get rid of some guys. The Islanders have to take advantage if they're serious about getting to the playoffs.
Yeah. And then you look at Winnipeg. By the way, Winnipeg, the best team in the league. They've lost 2 straight.
Okay.
And one of those losses was to Nashville. That snapped an 11-game winning streak.
It's weird how that works out.
Because we love hockey.
Yeah.
If you find a way to beat the Rangers and everything does work out in terms of point, I know a couple of teams are playing each other, but if you are 3 points back entering the game against Winnipeg, and they find a way to beat Winnipeg, it just makes the next 48, 72 hours, it's going to be absolute madness because if they are a point out of it, there's no way in my mind that Brock Nelson and Palmieri aren't with the team. Other players, and we'll get to, I have some trade deadline notes here. We'll get to it. There may be other players you move, but those 2 guys, I would be shocked.
So they could split these games, right? And then you don't know how comfortable they're going to be because they have a couple of days off between Tuesday and Friday, and they have the other teams playing in between, right? So that's going to make things. If they win both games, Lou, listen, I'm going to sit here and tell you, no matter how, that would be a bad investment.
Yeah, probably.
But if they sweep both of these games, I'll sit here and tell you whether you agree with it or not. Lou is not selling.
No,
I'll say that right now. If they split, maybe not. If they lose both, I don't even know if it's a guarantee because you have to look at what happens. Because in my mind, if they are 5 points or less out of the playoffs, to me, I think that means Lou's like, we're close enough. We're close enough.
I think if they win one of these 2 games, they're buying.
Buying, not even standing pat.
I think standing pat would be the worst thing you could possibly do because if Lou does believe in this group, whether it's a false belief or a belief, then he's going to back it up. And we always know that if he could add, and then you have Barzal and LTIR, which opens up cap space. So you have cap space, and if Barzal's not coming back at all this year, get that. And I don't think it's not the other thing people get concerned. Well, he shouldn't be buying. If he's buying, it's not rentals. He's not going out and getting a rental. He's going to get someone like a Romanov or a Horvat or someone of that level that could be here for years to help the team. So anyone knocking Lou buying, it's not just buying for this year. That's never been Lou's plan here. He's never once done the rental route. So I don't have any reason to think he's going to do that again.
Yeah, and I guess you could almost say that would be almost speeding up the retool process that everybody seems to want to get involved in, right? And maybe he's just spinning assets a little more quickly, right? Because whenever we talked about that, we say, get the assets now. Yeah. Then when the summer comes, take a look at who's available. Right. But who knows? Maybe that person is available at the deadline. Maybe Lou gets creative and he does deal a Nelson or a Palmieri, but gets assets and then swings into something younger, something faster, something better.
Whether it's now or at the draft, like we talked about.
And that sounds great. It's much harder to do. But there's so many possibilities out there. And I saw you tweeted this out earlier today, and I'm with you 100%, is that if the Islanders feel like they have a shot at the playoffs, they're not selling. Yeah. They're not going to unload these guys because they're going to give them a chance to make the playoffs. And even if that, mindset isn't in alignment with the fans out there who's been clamoring for selling these guys.
It's not.
Right. It's not. And unfortunately, and I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm just saying that's where I feel that Lou and the Islanders are, where it's like, look, if we have a shot, we're going for it. And you could, speculate what that reasoning is, right? Whether it's just for money at the gate for those extra 2 guaranteed playoff games at UBS Arena. Not the right reason to stay in the mix. I'll say that.
I agree.
But that could be it. Because who knows how things are going with season tickets and all that. And again, we reference the fact that it's been a few years now, but they still have the new building, and we don't know what the finances are. But you'd like to think that isn't good enough for this franchise, just getting in for a couple extra playoff games and getting out. I'm sure Lou will sit down and tell you, I believe in this team and they can go on a run.
Well, once he doesn't, he's got to, once your GM doesn't believe, you're done.
Right. And, we've played devil's advocate in the past, how, talking about how you have a goaltender like Sorokin and you can ride a guy like him into the deep into the playoffs. So that, whether you guys agree with it or not, that very well could just be Lou and the Islanders mindset. And it probably is, because they've been saying it, during the rough times and the better times of this season is, we believe in this team. We believe in this squad. And I'll give the Islanders themselves credit, as you and I have been saying all season long too. They haven't quit. They're still trying to win hockey games despite, getting in their own way half the season, right? That's why they're essentially a 500 team, right? But I mean, this is a squad who I think if they're any less than 5 points out, I think we're either going to see Lou not do anything or try to add something, because I think they want to go for it.
Yeah, this is not clickbait either way. Anyway, guys, I think it's funny. We get into arguments, people on social media, because I give that point of view, and I'm like, guys, this is not me saying what I think they should do. It's just the reality.
Right. And it's not so much us, we're not necessarily sharing that opinion with Lou. We're just looking at the Islanders and Lou and saying, this is what this guy's probably going to do regardless of what we think.
Right. Then again, he could do the complete opposite and be like, gotcha.
You never know.
That's kind of how he works.
So you seem to think they're going to buy. So with that in mind, do you have any names that you think that they would go after to buy in on? Or just generally speaking?
Well, I know that they had interest in Nikolai Ehlers at the draft. Now, Winnipeg would be crazy. If I'm Winnipeg, I don't trade Ehlers, and I hope that we win a cup, and then he leaves. I'd let him walk to win a cup. I know Ehlers is the guy that they had on their radar. I'd be interested to see about a Brock Besser. Jordan Kyrie's a guy that just keeps coming back into my head if they wanted to move Dobson. I just think Kyrie's a guy that could fit this front line. But I don't know, because Lou also has gone time and again getting a middle six player to play a top six role. So these flashy names aren't usually guys that Lou goes, like, yes, he got Horvat, he's got Palmieri. Those were top names on the market, but also those are middle six, top six guys, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be on, like, also, too, like I said, he could sell, but not the guys you think.
Right.
That's another thing, too.
And I'm sure we're going to get plenty of questions later and questions brewing regarding this, and we can cover a lot more bases on the deadline. But the deadline is Friday. It's coming. We're going to see what the Islanders do. We're going to see what the league does. And then after that, the Islanders embark on their California trip. Saturday, they go into San Jose. That is a 10 p.m. start here on the East Coast. That's a game the Islanders should win. Then they have the back-to-back there. Sunday, the 9th, they go into Anaheim, 9 p.m. start here in the East Coast. Another game that they should win. So these are games that Luke could be looking at, being like, look, these are other ways to climb back into the mix here. But here's something else I'll say that's on tap further down the road.
Should I buckle up?
Sure, if you want.
No, sorry.
Now, I alluded to this last week. I looked ahead at March. 31 days in the month. 15 games on the schedule. That's obviously already started, right? They get the win against Nashville. They get the win against Boston at the end of the month. But I looked at the competition this month.
Yes.
And it is not easy.
Nope.
And when they're playing essentially every other night, you kind of look at the deadline and say, is it really worth not selling here? Because look at some of the teams that they're playing here. The Rangers, Winnipeg, LA, Edmonton, Florida, Columbus, tough now.
Yep.
Tampa Bay, Carolina. That's essentially half of the games they're playing. We just listed Anaheim and San Jose. So there are some beatable teams. Montreal's in there somewhere. Calgary's in there somewhere. Those are games you'd like to think the Islanders can win. But you're looking at half of this month against mid-tier to top-tier competition. So even if you're looking at the standings and saying to yourself, well, they're 5 or less, out, hopefully, by the time the deadline comes, are they really going to get through that March grind and find themselves in a competitive place? And April's no walk in the park either. I looked at April too. You got Washington in there. There's some other tough teams in there. Like, basically the rest of the Islanders schedule is going to be a grind. You have your starting goalie who essentially doesn't have a capable backup. So Lou may want to look at the big picture, and I'm not saying he won't. Of course he is. But it would be, to me, ballsy to look at their standing now and say to himself, yeah, we'll get through March and April and we'll finish the season in a playoff spot. So ultimately, even if they're hovering around 3 to 5 points out, I would still say it would be ballsy to buy or stick with Nelson and Palmieri and Pajot and say to themselves, yeah, we're going to get in, because it's going to be a tough March and April, and they would deserve all the credit in the world if they got in, because it's that tough.
That's what I was just going to say. So you're saying they're going to have to earn their playoff?
Absolutely they are.
It's so funny because Lou, I know Lou watches and reads everything. He's probably laughing so hard. He probably made his mind up on January 1st, what he was going to do. Like,
Sure.
He's just watching everyone go panic. But I think we didn't mention it. Pierre LeBrun spoke with Lou on the phone about it, and he had said about Brock, like, he's integral to this team, and we love him as an Islander. And LeBron said he is holding up everybody. Yeah, you saw the move for Nyquist. Could that have been a spot where Nelson went or Palmieri went to Minnesota? You just look at other teams. They're gonna start sweating and pivoting. Now that's what if Lou is going to sell and he's just playing the game, you don't want that, because then other teams like Dallas, like we saw Dallas go and get
he needs suitors, he needs competition.
Yeah,
for
and I
these
think there'll
players.
always be, of course, but if teams are like, F this, we're not waiting.
Right.
Like, we're not going to wait. Like, that's going to hurt. So I think Lou knows what he's doing with the halftime use it. I don't think it'll come down to 2:59 p.m. on Friday before he moves it. I think that's ballsy as well.
Yeah.
But I think he wants other teams to sweat. He knows he's not going to, everything he says is calculated, and him not saying much is calculated.
Of course.
People that think like, oh, he's sleeping. Like, no, he is just waiting to see who's going to break first and call and say, hey, we'll give you a first and the top prospect for Brock. And he's like, got you. Like, that's how he goes. So, again, these next couple of days are going to be so interesting, but the Islanders have to do what they can to win these hockey games, because it just, not saying ego's a thing, but if Lou does buy and they drop these next 2 games, it's much different if they win these next 2 or a point out and Lou buys. Fans won't be happy regardless, but you can say, you know what, a point out, like, yeah, of course they're going to go for it. But if they're 5, 6, 7 points out, it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, if the Islanders drop these 2 games, I think they have finally made it a little easier for us to say, okay, you guys tried your best. It's time to sell. But because there's no doubt, if they drop these 2 games already at 5 points out,
right,
you're looking at 7, 9,
right,
whatever it is, unless the other teams just completely crap out too, which is possible. It's certainly possible.
We've seen crazier things.
But yeah, if you're above 5 points out by the time you hit Friday, I think it's very, very foolhardy to hang on to these guys. I mean, look, if your intention is to have Nelson and Palmieri the next 2 to 3 years because you envision them part of the squad, okay, fair enough. Not to say I agree with it.
Team-friendly deal.
Yeah. Okay, fine. But if you're hanging on to those guys despite all of that, then yes, you're doing the franchise and your fans a disservice by hanging on to them and not doing the right thing, because Lou may not be here for the next 10, 20, 30 years, but the fan base is.
Don't be so sure about that.
Right. You never know. The technology is getting great. But, you have a fan base to worry about here who wants to see a cup, before,
die?
Yes, if you want to get dark like that. Yes, that's true. So that will do it for What's on Tap, presented by Center Station Bar and Grill. Catch great food and drinks, live events, and Isles games all season long at 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center. And now it's time for Hero of the Week. Yes, so Stefen, let's start with you, as we usually do.
Yes, Hudson Fasching. This guy comes into the lineup for the first time since January 5th. That was the other day against Boston. In his return to TD Garden, where he got hurt the first time, from the jump, he looked like the old Hudson Fasching. Not last year's Hudson Fasching, the one from the year before that got himself in a multi-year deal. Energy, physicality, high IQ, making the plays that you want to see him play in limited minutes for sure. He earned himself third-line minutes by the end of that game. Siplikov got demoted. Patrick Waugh loved what Fasching brought, said it was great to see because he knows how hard he's working. I had talked to Fasching. He was so excited to get back in the lineup. And then we have the game on Saturday, gets an assist. He's playing well. He stays in the lineup. Siplikov comes out in large parts the way Fasching played. And Fasching's one of those guys that just in the room is a great guy, does his job, understands his role. He knows he's not going to play top 6 minutes. But in these last 2 games, if he's going to bring what he's brought to the lineup, he's providing that spark. Like Gackham had that spark. Maybe it's worn off a little bit. Hudson Fasching's filling that hole where the Islanders do need to be sparked right now. And again, against Boston, he brought it early on his first shift. Against Nashville, I mean, look at the goal for Cizikas' goal. Right off the bat, or was Pajot's goal. He lays a hit in the neutral zone, allows for the turnover, gets in the zone. He lays the hit along the boards, leads to the goal, gets an assist later. He was just doing everything the Islanders need that kind of player to do. So he's my hero just because it's been a while for him. We've missed him doing this stuff the last 2 years. And it's great that he's finally healthy. He had a lot of injuries. That if he could bring that, forget the offense. We know that, what he scored, like 4 or 5, 6 goals in like a 2-week, 3-week span when he first came up, if you remember that. So if he could even bring a little bit of that offense and just play that smart, defensive-minded, physical brand of hockey, he's someone the Islanders need going down the stretch if they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, you'd like to have your bottom 6 kind of, a little more clear.
Yeah.
As we saw a lot of rotating going on over the season, and you have a guy like Cizikas getting older, and not to say Fasching's a center, but just guys, the puzzle pieces, in that bottom 6. You want to see guys that can actually, contribute, and Fasching gave a lot of hope 2 years ago, like you pointed out, and sometimes guys have a rough year, and hopefully now that he's healthy, he's kind of coming back. But my hero might be the last time he's a hero of the week on this show. You never know. Not only for that reason, but also for the fact that the guy had a point in every game this week, 2 goals and an assist versus Nashville. Mr. Brock Nelson, number 29. He is my hero. And if this is the last time, been an absolute outstanding Islander. Pleasure watching him on the team. And if he does get dealt, I hope the guy wins the cup, because if it's not happening here, nice to see it happen somewhere else, as long as it's not in MSG or up in Toronto, and I don't think it's going to be either one of those. But, hero of the week, Brock Nelson.
Good choice.
There you go. So that'll do it for Hero of the Week, Hudson Fasching and Mr. Brock Nelson. And before we go to the Snake Den, I'm going to tell you guys about Isles Fix. Islanders Country, get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at islesfix.substack.com. And now we go to the Snake Den.
Welcome to the Snake Den with Jake the Snake.
Yes, folks, He was missing last week, but we found him.
He's in a tree somewhere.
We sent the snake charmer out into the caves, and thankfully we found him. Jake the Snake, you're back. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Glad to be back.
Excellent. Love the Sabres hat, by the way.
Thank you.
Very
Got it
nice.
upstate. It was fitting. Having it up there.
Excellent. So what do you got for us tonight, pal?
Yeah, I mean, trades, right?
Yeah, they're happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I think there's a general consensus for us as Islanders fans that we want to see them retool. I think that would be the best
More or
bet.
less. Sure, yeah.
And yeah, love Brock Nelson, one of my all-time favorite Islanders. Pretty much during my teens, like he's been here forever. And but I do think that it's in the best interest of the team to trade him and get some assets and kind of retool. So I wanted to talk about some teams that have done that kind of recently.
Okay.
So the Rangers under David Quinn were miserable, if you guys remember.
Not great.
So they were 7th in the Metro in 2018-19, the COVID year, 7th in the Metro, but they got into the qualifying round and they got swept by Carolina. 21, they were 5th in that shortened season, the NHL East, missed the playoffs. Then they got rid of some assets. Ryan McDonough, JT Miller, who's now back, Matt Zuccarello, Derek Stepan, and they extended guys like Mika Zibanejad, signed Panarin, which obviously that one sucked.
We remember that.
Yeah, we do remember. We thought he was coming to our New York.
Yeah, what fools we were.
They drafted young guys, the Lafreniere, Kakko, got younger, and now you look at them. They went to the conference finals the next year. The year after that, they made the playoffs, lost in the first round. The year after that, last year, President's Trophy, another conference finals trip. So they did that really short. They had a roster of guys, and they flipped that quick. So that'd be great to see the Islanders do something like that. And a team that just did that and it's working wonders is the Washington Capitals. Of
course.
Yep.
Yes.
And they're first in the East. It's ridiculous. Ovechkin can't be stopped.
He's going to score that goal against the Islanders.
I hope he does.
That is
I hope he does.
1,000,000%. I think that
I'll be standing up and cheering if it happens.
I think Ovechkin's going into that game one goal off the record. He's going to tie it and break it.
Oh, so power
against
play
the
goal
Islanders.
from the sweet spot, empty net. That's the one thing too, right?
You don't
It
want
can't
him
be
to
an
break it
empty
on an
net.
empty net, right?
It can't be.
Like if there's an empty net and I'm Carberry, unless it's the last
Take him
game.
off the
if
ice.
it's the last game of the season, he doesn't have it yet.
Sure.
Obviously,
Right.
Carberry, sit down. Because we are not ruining this.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Ovechkin would feel the same way. He'd be like, I'm not going out there.
Unless it's like a full zone bar down, full like from the D zone. Like it's got to be a or a slap shot on the empty net. But like,
no.
I don't know. That's just not. It should
It's
be
a good point. I wouldn't want to see that either.
It really should be a power play goal from these offenses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that's how he should break it. A bar down. Yeah.
Sure.
Not against the Islanders. I'm just saying.
Just not an empty netter.
Yeah.
How about
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
I
Or like, it'll be a deflection off his arm. Oh, yeah, it was me.
It'll be a goal interference. It'll be challenged. There'll be delay.
That would be
they'll
awful.
Call it a goal.
That would be awful.
But I completely think that Alex Ovechkin is getting that against the Islanders on the island. They come to the island twice, so in March, and he's 11 goals off right now. I don't have the exact math on how many games out that is, but
they have lines like who he's going to hit it against, and the Islanders are the number one.
I saw a tweet going out there that he was like tracking to tie it the game before or something like that against Columbus or something, maybe not, and then break the record against the Islanders. I mean, how awesome would it be to be in the building to see that?
That's what I was going to say. Buy your tickets now before they skyrocket.
It would be insane. I just know if you're an Islander fan and you've been punished by Ovechkin, like what if that's the game that the Islanders missed the playoffs because of that one?
That's true.
For me, as a hockey fan, that's a decent trade-off for me.
Yeah.
Not for nothing.
But yeah, the Capitals retool. I mean, what they bring in Chychrun, Pierre.
They brought in 6 players.
Yeah, Pierre-Luc
Crazy.
Dubois, Logan Thompson. I mean, it's great. And it worked out very well for them. And I mean, I think earlier in the season, I thought they were totally going to drop out. Clearly, they're not. They're here to play.
It's
and
funny,
I would love to see the Islanders do the same.
It's funny how that stuff works because sometimes you see a team attempt something similar where they acquire a bunch of guys in the summer, but there's just no chemistry. It doesn't work and it falls apart. Yes, actually, great point. Nashville tried the same thing, and it goes the exact opposite way. And you would think, with name cred like Steven Stamkos, that's not happening.
Stamkos, Shea, Marchessault, re-signing Saros, giving up your top goaltending prospect, and
dumpster fire.
Yeah, bad.
Yeah, well, we all know how Barry Trotz runs teams, right? So we could have seen that coming from.
We knew he'd be defensive, but I mean, he said he's willing to sell, and like if you don't want to be here, he'll move you. I don't know how you move any of those 3 contracts without severely having to give up to like move
Water down.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very surprising, but not our problem here on the island.
Not our problem.
Thankfully. So,
Thanks, Jake.
is that everything you got there, Jake?
That's all I got. Yeah.
Okay. How do you think the Islanders are going to do against the Rangers and the Jets?
I think they're gonna get revenge on the Rangers.
Okay.
They're gonna win in their building.
Okay.
Because they won in our building.
That is what revenge
I'm gonna
is.
say they're gonna do that in. I'm gonna say they're gonna do that in regulation too.
Okay.
Which would be great.
Okay.
The Jets. I think they're gonna lose, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do push it to overtime.
That would be big.
Will there be a secondary assist on the game-winning goal?
Let's say.
Come on, man. What do you got?
Let's say yes. From Ilya
Outstanding.
Sorokin.
All right. And more seriously, Islanders buying, selling, or standing pat?
I'm gonna say buying, unfortunately, but it could be cool. Who knows?
It could be. You never
Randomize it.
know.
Make
Let's
a
wait
shirt.
and see.
Yeah, we'll leave that door open.
Buying question mark could be cool. And it's just Jake going like this.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. All right, make the graphic. All right, folks, that's going to do it for the Snake Den. Great job, Jake. Great to have you back. Nice hat.
Thank you.
And, you know, we'll see what happens from there.
We shall
Whatever
see.
the hell that means.
Yeah.
It's time for Questions Brewing.
It's time for Questions Brewing. So go ahead. Ask us a question.
Bam. That's right. It's part of the show where we answer your questions. Ed, how we doing?
Well, I'm here this week.
You are here. Welcome back.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
is Jake. I didn't even know Jake was here.
Well, that's why
Wasn't
Oh,
Jake-
last
skeleton
week.
crew
That's why
last week,
Jay's-
man.
Oh my God.
Jay actually did a very admirable job running everything on his own. He did a good job.
So I'm assuming he's happy Jay tonight.
No,
I
it's
don't know.
worse.
He
worse?
looks melancholy, Jay.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe you. can
Starbucks has
verify
a new
that for
drink
us.
out, so Jay's just in.
You don't know him like I do.
Jay is a big Starbucks guy, though.
Mm-hmm.
For anybody who might be curious out there. So Ed, how are we looking in the chat tonight?
You know, we got a lot of experts in buying and selling tonight.
Is that right?
We do.
Yeah,
We do.
All right.
We got a lot of
wisdom.
suggestions, a lot of
A
wisdom.
lot of sage words.
Yes.
Okay.
I learned a thing or two.
Well, please bestow those words upon us.
We'll start off with non-buying and selling to start.
Okay.
What a letdown.
I know. That's pretty much the only one. Why is the talent pool so bad at Bridgeport? You had to go outside the organization to pick up 3 defensemen when injuries are piling up.
Well, it helps. It hurts when you don't have a first round pick. That's why the talent pool is not as high
Fair
because
point.
everything's
Yeah.
4th round, 5th round guys next.
Okay.
And that was it.
I mean, that's the real reason you don't have the high end
answer.
talent. Yeah.
It's a good
All right.
answer.
Usually long-winded. Next up from Tom Boyle. He says, given Barzal and his injury history,
No.
would you consider
No.
moving or trading him this summer?
This summer, I thought this was going to be a deadline question. No, at the end of the day, because I don't think he's proven to be an injury-prone player. Like, when you step in front of a shot and it shatters your kneecap, I don't think that's, telling you that the player is a problem and he's injury-prone. That's just bad luck,
If you're trading Barzal, then getting Horvat for Barzal made no sense. Getting Duclair to hopefully fit, like you're kind of starting over. Unless you got, if you're trading Barzal in a package, he can't be the best. It's like when we talk about Dobson. If you're trading Dobson, he can't be the best player in the deal. So I'd be absolutely shocked.
Yeah, I say no.
And he's got a no trade. So
Next up from Jeremy, he says, Romanov and George for first-round pick, parentheses, Frank Nazar. How do you feel about this trade at this point? How do you feel about Horvat for Bavillier, Ratti, and first moved out for Hronik?
yeah, the Romanov deal is a slam dunk. Nazar has done. That's how you pronounce it. Nothing. Chicago's bad. Like Chicago's really bad.
True.
And you got George, so you essentially you didn't know what you were going to get in George, a late round, 4th round pick, right? No one even expected him to be in the NHL this year, and he has shown you
Right.
that. You have to even talk about him as he's going to fight for a spot next year. They have 9 defensemen now.
Well, yes.
Before the trade deadline, obviously we'll see what happens, but
Right.
they have a lot of defensemen, and George is someone who's shown that hey, he just needs to be a little more seasoned and get that experience. Slam dunk trade, and I think the Canuck trade for Horvat worked out for both. Like I think the Islanders definitely won the trade with Montreal and Chicago, that whole thing. The Horvat trade is split. Horvat's been great for the Islanders. The Canucks flipped the pick they got, the conditional first, and got Hronik, who's been great for Vancouver. It didn't work out for Bavillier. Ratti was up and down like an elevator.
Right.
So yeah, I think definitely won the Romanov. George trade, Horvat I think is pretty even, but for the Islanders, I think it's both wins.
Yeah, and I don't think many people in Islander country knew just how much of a win that Romanov trade.
I don't think
would
the
end
Islanders
up
knew, to be
becoming.
honest. I think
That's fair.
they took a gamble on the potential, and it's just paying off.
It has paid off very
tremendously.
well.
This just in from Christopher. He says, biggest NHLer getting traded this deadline.
In terms of size?
No.
Rantanen.
Star power. Yeah, we may have seen it already. Oh, you think he's going to get dealt again?
I think it's in the Hurricanes' best interest to, regardless of what they're going to do with him, keep him and go for a run.
Yeah.
But if they really think there's no and they really are just like it's not going well and they want to flip him, I could see it. I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does happen, it would be horrific for Carolina back-to-back years where you get guys and you don't win a cup or you trade those guys. But I think he would probably be the biggest. I don't know if there's any other. I mean, I wouldn't say Brock Nelson's bigger than Rantanen. No. Yeah, I would say seeing Rantanen get flipped again would be insane.
Yeah. Next up from the wheel, he says, fast forward 2 seasons and rank the following based on scoring. Holmstrom, Siplikov, and Yzerman.
Okay. I like this. 2 years. Yzerman's at the bottom for me.
He's in college still, probably.
Maybe. Does he have 2 years left in college?
He's a freshman. He's got 3 years left.
He has many years left.
Oh, it depends. If you go for his master's, you get 5.
True. Dr. Yzerman. Yeah. I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna say Holmstrom, Siplikov, Yzerman.
Same thing.
Nice. 2-part question from Tom Boyle. He says, with Hogberg not close to returning, if the Islanders win tomorrow and gain ground, do the Islanders trade for a backup? And do you see Mayfield getting moved?
Really funny you said Mayfield. I think I think there's concern with Hogberg. It was funny. Me and Andrew were going back and forth. He wrote a column like 2 weeks ago where he said Hogberg not being back after the break's an issue, and I wrote it's not an issue until last week. And when Hogberg wasn't back, when you had the back-to-backs, you're thinking, what are they going to do this week? Like this week's going to be bad without Hogberg.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe he's on the ice tomorrow, but we know that Hogberg is not taking shots yet.
Okay.
That's a problem. You said they can't trust Skarek. They're not going to play him. They have a lot of games coming up. They're going to run Sorokin to the ground. Yeah, if they go get an affordable backup, but you see like Florida, another team that's going to be bidding for a backup. So they're not the only team. I think it is in their best interest to go and get a serviceable backup goaltender. And for Mayfield, if you had asked me a week ago if he would be traded, I would tell you there's no way in hell that he waives his no trade to go anywhere. He's been a healthy scratch 3 straight games. If he's a healthy scratch through the break and that's 5, it's a way that Lou's kind of like, hey, Scott, we're not going to play you.
Right.
Waive. I don't know if that's the case, but I'm more likely now to think that he would waive. I know Toronto's a team that's definitely has interest in him or a player like him. So I wouldn't be shocked. That's one of those guys where I said, they might sell, but not the guys you think. Mayfield, maybe an Anders Lee, a Pajot, a Cizikas, they could flip D'Angelo. So we'll see.
Bashing Gacom McLennan as a 4th line. Thoughts? Cizikas, Pajot, and Holmstrom. Decent 3rd line?
I think that's a decent bottom 6. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What about you, Stefen?
I think Holmstrom is showing that he could be a top 6 guy. I think for the Rangers tomorrow, I could see Siplikov playing like Duclair being a healthy scratch, Siplikov on the top line, Holmstrom on the second line, and bottom 6. I think Fasching suited for the 4th line role. Obviously Engvall's been better, but he's not a 4th line guy, so I don't think you could factor him in there. I mean, I'd rather see Engvall in a top 6 in terms of just his skill set. I don't think he should fit into the Islanders' top 6, but he brings speed. He doesn't hit. You don't want him playing defense.
Right, and I don't necessarily mind the rotation.
Right.
As long as there's success. Right, so if Patrick Waugh thinks, all right, they're playing X team, and he feels like Engvall should get in there for whatever reason, fine, as long as they do their job, right? So I don't mind any one of those guys, particularly in the 4th line, taking a seat every now and then, just going on vibe, right? Like saying, we'll bring this guy in, or we'll bring that guy in. Maybe, you back up a couple years, and they did that with Ross Johnston, right? For different reasons, but, you just kind of feel out a team, feel out the schedule, and like, all right, we want to put this guy in, put that guy in. But, on paper, the options that they have for the bottom 6 are good. It's just a matter of making sure that mix works when they actually get out on the ice.
Yeah. Presuming New Jersey and Carolina stay in the top 3, who do you see the 2 wildcard teams being?
I'm a big fan of Columbus. I really want to see them.
You're on the train.
I want to see Columbus catch the Devils.
I would like to see that as well.
It's
getting close, man.
They might do it. I don't know what it is right now, but I think it's 3 or 4. It's close. I would love to see Columbus do it. I don't know about Ottawa. I don't know. I don't know.
Detroit's playing well,
Yeah.
but despite losing to Columbus, I mean,
4 points.
Look, you got. Look, who are the realistic teams, right? Like, you can throw out Philadelphia, you can throw out Montreal. I think you can throw out Boston. We've been saying that.
Throw out Pittsburgh.
Oh, I wasn't even going to mention Pittsburgh.
It's Islanders, Rangers,
Senators, Red Wings, Columbus, Devils.
Yeah, if they fall, I guess.
Tampa's, they've been bouncing between the 3 and the wild card spots too, but I think they ultimately stay ahead of Detroit and Ottawa. I mean, I don't know. Listen, if I'm going like completely unbiased, I'm looking at maybe Columbus and the Rangers. If I'm going biased,
I was gonna say Detroit and Columbus because Detroit's. They went on that streak
Detroit.
of like 20 straight years.
That too.
It feels always weird when they're not in the playoffs because like my whole childhood they were amazing. I mean, they were amazing.
And now that the Rangers have sold, maybe you give the spot to Detroit instead. So yeah, maybe Columbus, Red Wings, and then if the Islanders are living on a prayer, then I'd love to see Columbus Islanders just for the story.
Is "Living on a Prayer" on your list of wedding songs that you will not listen to? Is that okay?
No, that one's all right.
Okay.
That one's fine.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Next.
John Bon Jovi, baby.
Yeah, there you go. With the Rangers' dominance in front of the net last game, does Mayfield get back in tomorrow night?
That's a thought because, that's a thought that we all had. Wall got asked about that. Andrew Gross asked him a great question, and he asked and said, did you miss having Mayfield? And Wall went on this long rant and then goes, well, to answer your question simply, no. Like, we have guys out there could do that job. So would that make sense? Yes. Could I see them doing it? Yes. But based on what Wall said, I don't know what, outside of one bad game from Mayfield after an injury, I don't know. Something's weird there. Like, I feel like after the break, everybody was rusty. You knew that Scott had a bad game. I think you acknowledge that, but he's a veteran. You feel like he goes right back in, and he didn't, and he's still not back in. So I wouldn't be shocked if Mayfield is not back in.
Okay. How do you feel about Pajot's trade for Ridley Greig? Is it Greig or Greg?
Ridley Greig?
Is it Greig? It's Greig, right?
Greig, yeah.
So how do you feel about that trade for Ridley Greig and what turned out to be Roni Hirvonen for the Leafs?
I'm assuming they're talking about the Pajot trade for the Islanders when they acquired him. Yeah, I don't know the second guy.
I have no comment because I don't know what those other guys are
Greig's
doing.
been good, but Pajot's what he's doing now. He has 11. He tied his season high goals last year, last game in 25 fewer games, something like that. He's winning his career high in the faceoffs. I think it's paid off for the Islanders. He was a big reason of why they went to the back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals.
No, absolutely.
And the Ottawa Senators have done absolutely nothing. And Tampa, whoever the guy you just mentioned, never heard of him, so I don't know if he even played for them. I don't know. So yeah, I think
Pajot's a win.
It was a great trade. Did he get hurt in the bubble that one year? Hurt his arm? Was he not the same with the wrist? Sure, but yeah, the Islanders don't have the success that they had without him.
If the Isles beat the Rangers and Jets before going out west, do you see anyone being traded?
Yeah, like I said, I think if Mayfield is a healthy scratch through it, or a D'Angelo you could flip, or a Boquist you could flip, maybe a Cizikas or a Pajot, I would be under the radar guys, not the top 3 names that you'd think the Islanders would move, because those guys are assets.
I think D'Angelo only gets dealt if it's to sell. I think he's been too much of a net positive for this team since he's came over. I think he's part of the solution of making a playoff spot, assuming that's what they're aiming to do.
Yeah.
This one from MJ Becken. Has there ever been an out-of-town hockey reporter that had said he enjoyed watching the Islanders?
Other than David?
No. No. I mean, listen, sometimes, a lot of times this season, they haven't been that boring style of play. Like when they won 7-game win streak, that was fun hockey. Right. So it depends, I guess, who you like. If you're a big fan of goaltenders and you love watching Sorokin play, it's probably fun to watch him face 45 shots.
Yeah, and it's a funny question because, and I think it comes from this, right? It's just like the Islanders for a very long time were just a team that people love to hate, especially during the Barry, even before. But during the Barry Trotz years, everybody just loved that lazy narrative of, they're boring, they're not fun to watch.
I mean, to be fair, it was not boring in the sense if you liked the game, but if you're like, I want a lot of offense, obviously that wasn't the team for you.
Right, for sure. And it wasn't, and I'll always laugh because it was too late when they jumped on the bandwagon. When you saw journalists picking the Islanders to win the cup, it was the year after the second appearance in the conference finals, and then they fell off and stuff like that. But you know what? It's nice to hear it every now and then, right? That there's actually some people that appreciate the style of game that they play.
Next up from Enzeb, he says, can you explain how when Mike Bossy quit, he scored 38 goals and he felt he was a disappointment, and how the Isles get happy when a guy scores close to 40?
Well, didn't he have a back injury?
Well,
it was
listen.
Yeah.
Different time, but also that's just a testament to what a standard Mike Bossy held himself to. I mean, this guy, he was, I'd love to see what would have happened if he didn't have the back problems and if he did, end up staying late. Because the funny thing is, Ovechkin may not be chasing Gretzky's record. He might be chasing
I couldn't agree more.
record.
Bossy might have been the greatest goal scorer. I mean, in his era, he was. I mean, he scored. It was ridiculous.
But it is hilarious that he had so much pride, and I don't mean this in a negative way. Like, he had so much pride, and he held himself to such a high standard where he's like, well, if I'm not putting up more than 38 goals, then I should probably call it quits. Or let's be honest here.
Pain.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Like it's one thing if your production's still there, but if you're going home and you can't sleep at night because your back is killing you, like that's a reason enough to bow out as well. So, I mean, it's such a shame because his name would probably be all over records up, down, left, and right if he had stuck around, and you'd have the Islander logo next to it. But, unfortunately, his body, failed him,
Yeah. Who would you rather have as your 6D, Perunovic, Mayfield, Boqvist, or George?
I think it's very easy to just let George develop. Yep. I don't think there's any reason to rush him up. He showed promise, but I don't think he needs to be there now. And Perunovic, I'd like to see more from. Boqvist, he's been playing well. I think Patrick Waugh likes Boqvist.
This is a trick question, by the way, because if you're talking about 6D, it kind of matters who your 50 is. Like, who are you pairing with? Like, for example, Boqvist has been really good offensively, not great defensively. So if his partner is like a Perunovic or a well, I guess Mayfield is really, he had a bad game, right? But a stay-at-home defense and big body that would allow a Boqvist or a speedy guy to thrive, like then you want Mayfield there.
Well, I guess the easiest way to answer this question is just who's your ideal 6 right now?
Yeah. So I think it's Romanov D'Angelo.
Okay.
Dobson Pelech.
Okay.
Pulak, and then probably Boqvist. That's your ideal. Riley, if Riley's back. Take Boqvist out, put Riley
Do you think Riley supplants Boqvist and Perunovic? Because that's what I'm curious about. And I wonder what Patrick Waugh thinks when it comes to that.
I think Perunovic, because Riley is probably better than Perunovic, and you got Perunovic because you needed a speed guy. Boqvist, it's probably neck and neck. And again, too, Riley's missed so much time. How long would it take him to get back into it? Is he going to have a bunch of rough games? Like, the Islanders can't afford that. I think if Riley is healthy and looks ready to go, he does what Boqvist does and brings the out. He had I feel like Riley did such a good job and earned himself his deal that he would pass over Boqvist. But if Boqvist is your 7th guy, that's really good. I think.
Don't hate it.
Next up from Christopher, he asks, was that a game misconduct in last night's stadium game? Very similar to Casey play. Height difference, very similar, but no call last night.
I'm guessing we're talking about the high stick towards the end?
I guess so.
I don't think that's a game misconduct. I think it's a missed high stick penalty.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, we could be referring to another play. I didn't watch the whole game, so the only play that I can think of that might be being referenced here is that high stick late in the game. And no, I don't think it was a game misconduct. I think it was just.
Oh, he said not the high stick.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. I'll wait for him to clarify, maybe.
Okay.
But in the meantime, Enzeb said that he did have a bad back and scored 38, but our guys are healthy and can barely sniff that.
Well, let's be fair too. Goaltending back then, not take anything away.
Right.
It's much harder to score on goalies today than it was 30 years ago.
Right. All right, so
but we obviously we didn't see the hit, so maybe I guess we'll.
I would shelve that question if you have another one.
I do not at this point. That might have been the last one.
Okay, fair enough. So, Stefen, you said you ultimately think the Isles are going to buy. You talked about some names here. I guess the question is there any chance? Do you think Lou sells even if they do drop these 2 games?
Oh, I think if they drop the 2 games, they do sell. I think they have to just win one of them, and they're going to sell.
1. Yeah. 2 points is enough.
I don't know if it's enough. I mean,
all right. Let me clarify. 2 points is enough for Lou.
I think so because at the end of the day, he's only going to buy if he believes the team gives him a reason to.
Yeah.
And if they win 3 of 4 after dropping those first 2, there's reason for optimism. And I think if the group's healthy, if outside of Barzal and they're playing well, that's the time to bring in assets to help you now and in the future. For the organization, I think it would be bad not to trade those guys, but what I think they're going to do, I think if they're close and they win the next game against the Rangers, I think Lou's going to have a really hard time even thinking about the S word.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Ed,
before we wrap up, the wheel just asked, special deadline episode or next Sunday?
Sunday.
We'll be back Sunday. We're going to do a show before the Anaheim game. Probably looking at a 7:30 start because of the 9 o'clock start time of that hockey game. So that's probably what we're going to end up doing.
Nice.
And then we'll talk post deadline about that.
Yes, sir.
So no clarity on that hit then.
I'm not sure. Maybe after
We'll
the,
fill the
the
notes.
show.
That's fine.
We'll fill
Not
it
a
in.
big deal. All right, so that'll do it for
Oh,
questions.
Danforth hit.
Danforth. I didn't see the hit, so I'm not
yes, I
even
know what
sure.
you're talking about. It was a little high. I don't think it was that bad though. You didn't even get a penalty on
okay.
the play. Yeah, no, I don't think it was that bad.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right, so that'll do it for Questions Brewing. Appreciate all the questions. Great stuff there. And the big question is, what is Lou Lamoriello going to do come Friday afternoon? We shall see. I'm sure nobody's going to be happy.
Regardless.
Yeah, but we'll see, and hopefully we see some good hockey out of the Islanders over the next 2 games. And so Questions Brewing is over, and now I'm going to tell you guys about the Hockey Night New York Patreon. That's right, go to patreon.com/HockeyNightNY for exclusive content featuring Q&As, columns, videos, behind-the-scenes, merchant partner discounts, and even an invitation to hang out with us here at Floored Media while we air the show. It's a great way to support what we do here, so please check it out. Once again, patreon.com/HockeyNightNY. And with that out of the way, we can wrap this up. All right, so right off the bat, want to thank David Dwork of the Hockey News for talking about the big trade, the big Seth Jones, Spencer Knight trade, as well as the trade deadline. Also, a huge thanks to all of our wonderful sponsors, starting with Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Find out how to unplug your game at mainstboardgamecafe.com. Also, a big thanks to Center Station Bar and Grill. Head on down to 279A Sunrise Highway in Rockville Center for Isles games, live music, karaoke, comedy shows, and more. Also, a big thanks to Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law. Nobody likes going to court, but if you have to, call 212-LAW 1500 for a free consultation. And last but not least, a huge thanks to Tovi Hockey, creators of the Diamond Air Blade. Go to tovihockey.com to check out their great products and use promo code HNINY10 for 10% off your order. And if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Make us feel better or worse about what we're doing here at Hockey Night in New York. Stefen Rosner, you are all over the internet. Please tell everyone.
I hate when you mention it like that. It's just weird.
Why, man?
No reason.
Why
You can
does
follow
that
me
make you
at
uncomfortable?
Stop talking. Stefen_Rosner, STEFEN_ROSNER, NHL.com. The Hockey News, the Almonters, Monday through Friday at thealmonters.com. And Blue Sky.
If you want to, you don't have to. You can you can follow myself at Shawnee Hockey on the Twitter. You can follow the show on all social media platforms at Hockey Night NY. You can check out the website at hockeynightny.com. I mentioned the Patreon already. We're everywhere. We're all over the place. Jake the Snake Radonis, where can we find you?
You can find me on X at Jake Radonis, Radonis.
Very well spelt. That is your last name. I think that's going to do it for the show. Like I said, next week, 7:30, pregame show before the Anaheim Ducks. We'll be talking post-trade deadline. For Stefen, for Jake, for Ed, and for Happy Jay, we've been Hockey Night in New York. We'll see you next time.